Oh my gosh, Tyson! I just don't know how many times you're going to have to say this. If you hear the construction, it is the statue that they're already making for Tyson and myself in Philadelphia. I mean, what is happening here? Welcome to Eagles Uncovered, presented by the Androppables. I'm Brad. That's Tyson. We are we're getting to Rocky tears here. I mean, we start this podcast. Next thing you know, the Eagles look like a juggernaut.
Well, we're gonna have a lot of crow to eat at some point because it's unlikely they're gonna win out for the rest of the year. But yeah, 7-0 since we started doing this thing here, the Uncovered series for the guys over at the Undroppables. It's been fun for us, but Brad, I think it's been fun because the team is winning, and the team is winning because there are 32 teams in the NFL. Only one of them has Saquon Barkley.
Yes, and that is Philadelphia Eagles, and that is our team. That we are going to discuss that, just what we're coming off an insane performance on Sunday Night Football. We'll dive into here in the near future, but we're going to go through the defense. We're going to go through the offense. We're going to talk about the massive showdown against the Ravens coming up on Sunday night, or coming up on Sunday, and then Tyson. Come on, can we hit a bold prediction? We've been hitting our predictions. We predict them to win, but can we hit a bold one? That's what we're looking for. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in. People have their feelings. It was a pretty much a rocking chair play. Saquon Barkley busting huge runs, gashing and getting into the end zone. Franchise record 255, over 300 all-purpose yards. An insane performance. He is now on pace to go over 2,000 yards. Only the eighth man ever do that in the NFL. Where do we start? I'm going to throw it to you. Wow, what a performance!
Yeah, what a performance. It was insane. I think it's not speaking out of turn to say that I think that's the greatest single game I've ever seen from a Philadelphia Eagle. And it felt like kind of inevitable. Once he hit the first big one, it was like, okay, because it was a 6, 7, 8 yard gains the whole time. If you're an Eagles fan and you're sicko just like us, I'm sure you've consumed the stats that his rush success rate was like 14 points, over average, especially remarkable when you consider the fact he had 26 carries, because the relationship between efficiency and the amount of workload is kind of negatively correlated. So for him to be that electric is awesome. You can miss me with he's going to play 17 games, so I don't care about the 2,000 yards thing. I want it, dude. I want this guy to go for all of it. So we'll give our flowers to Saquon here, but I don't know how deep we're going to get into it. The offensive line was awesome. Like they were absolutely awesome. There were some moments where Mekhi Becton lost. There was that viral clip of Jared Verse planting Jordan Mailata, and outside of those kind of things, there's not really much to complain. I mean, the 70-yard touchdown that Saquon had, the second long one of the game to really ice that thing. If you're paying attention, like on the counter, Mekhi Becton is supposed to kick the end all the way to the sideline, and the end does his darndest to get inside, and Becton says, I'm just going to take you where you want to go. And Grant Calcaterra fills that spot perfectly, and Saquon follows them all. It's high-level problem-solving by a high-level group, and it was on display fully for the rest of the NFL to see. It was a standalone spot. Everybody got to watch this.
Yeah, and I think what Saquon Barkley's talking about, because he's the story, right? Like, oh my God, look at him in this offense, and he's quick to point out the offensive line, Jeff Stoutland. Something us as Eagles fans and everybody listening to, we know that, right? Like the Stoutland University, this offensive line, we've been pounding it, and the fact that there hasn't been a drop off necessarily with Jason Kelce, one of the greatest centers, if not the greatest center of all time, retiring, going to Cam Jurgens, sliding him from right guard is nothing short of extraordinary. And you talk about it. You take a guy who's a bust, Mekhi Becton, and you just like, all right, you won the starting right guard job. This guy might get paid the offseason because of what he's doing on the Eagles. Like, that's the type of high-level performance that Jeff Stoutland's producing, that this offensive line group is producing. Because like you said, Becton's like, listen, you go that way, I know somebody behind me is going to fill the gap and fill the right block, or at least where this thing's supposed to be blocked up. And that's how they do it, and that's how Saquon Barkley gashed them. So, Tyson, this is an offensive system or an offensive profile that is going to be built on the run. Earlier, it was about, we want to be high efficiency EPA per play, right? That's going to be throwing the football. Not anymore. This is built on running the football. This is built on building around play action at certain times. We've seen Jalen Hurts under center more. I like the passing offense from that aspect a little bit more. We'll dive into the offense itself, but what did you see just in this game maybe that you came away confident in by beating the Rams? Take it away before we dive into each side of the ball.
Well, you don't see pockets like that in the NFL, and I know that the running game stole the show, rightfully so. 255 yards is nothing to sneeze at for Saquon, and Kenny Gainwell pop one off too. That's kind of under the radar. Higher rushing success rate this season than Saquon. Are we starting to have a conversation? No, I'm just kidding. But Jalen Hurts had 7 seconds essentially to do whatever he wanted. Like, this was what Will Levis dreams of. Basically, you can sit back there, eat a meal, read a book. Before finding what over and over again in this game was A.J. Brown, but in other games might end up being Goddard, Devontae Smith, what have you. This was excellent, I think, in that standpoint, because the Rams play physical. Like, that's kind of been lost in this whole like what's going on in the NFC West thing, is they have a fast, physical, and really young defensive line that wanted to get after the Eagles, and they were able to do that a little bit early, and then it was just completely squashed. Part of it, is when you're just being road graded, it's hard to buckle the chin strap up and say, well, I'm going to go get the passer now. And then the one thing that I think was more encouraging than even the run game to me from Saquon was Jalen Hurts' scramble ability on third down. I think that is a true key to this team making the run they want to make playing in February. Yes, Saquon is going to be absolutely fantastic, but you're going to run into the Lions or the Packers or whoever else in the playoffs, and it's going to be 3rd and 8. And Jalen Hurts has shown over and over and over again this season that if it's 3rd and 8, he can get 9. And if it's 3rd and 7, he can get 8. We're clamoring for these 50-yard, like the week 2 Minnesota game in 2022. You want that 150-yard Jalen Hurts game. But he's been darn near perfect with his decisions to go this season, or in the last month and a half. It was real rocky to start, but I think he's coming a long way as far as understanding what is expected of him and just what needs to be done to win the game.
Yeah, and that's, the offense kind of, he's getting more used to what Kellen Moore is calling. Kellen Moore is calling things a little bit more to Jalen's strengths, and we've seen this offense really take the next step compared to what it was earlier in the season. There's still room to grow, and I think that's what we'll touch on here in a little bit. But I think final takeaways for me on this Rams game is the physicality that you mentioned, because the Rams, I mean, I know the offense and it's the guru mind of McVay, and that's kind of discussed. But when they're at their best, the Rams, they're physical. They want to run the football. They want to pound you. They have Kyron Williams, who runs downhill and runs physically. Defensively, they used to have Jalen Ramsey, that's Aaron Donald. That was a defense that was built on physicality, filling running lanes, getting after the passer. That's still the identity. That's what Sean McVay builds his program around. And for the Eagles to show up that way, and honestly, it was like they were the car just in the windshield, and they just splatted the Rams. That was the type of way they looked on both sides of the football. I thought that was impressive. We highlighted, can this defensive line get after the Rams offensive line? Because that's where weakness. Can you get Stafford off his spot? That was really the story on that side of the football. Brandon Graham, who we'll touch on in a little bit, him being hurt, but that sucks. But his ability to get after the passer, Josh Sweat and anybody from the interior, that was huge. And then we've already talked about the offensive line and Saquon Barkley. I mean, just road grading that defensive unit. And so just the way this team continues to play physical is something that is not lost on me. And I think that is a huge thing going forward as they get ready for the playoffs, presumably, because they're rolling they're at the point where they're pretty much in.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's 96% right now. They're essentially locked into one here, but that playoff discussion is going to get a little weird without BG in the fold, because this is some of the best football that he's been playing. If you're listening to this, you're certainly an Eagles fan, and you understand that Brandon Graham might be the most Eagle of all time. He's not the best Eagle of all time, but I think when I think of the Philadelphia Eagles, he's certainly on my personal Mount Rushmore, and it's from the 2011, he's a bust. He's got 2 sacks and a knee surgery, essentially, in his first 3 years of his career. He's got nothing going for him to making the biggest play in Eagles history, the strip sack that we all know about. But this season, he's been silently putting together one of his best campaigns. I think it's 3.6 yards per carry is what the other team averages when Brandon Graham is on the field. That goes to 5.6 when he's off the field. So this Ravens game is a horrible time to be losing your best edge, defender against the run. And with Huff still on the sidelines here for the next couple of weeks with that thumb surgery, it's going to get weird, because I think Josh Sweat is resurged a little bit since he collapsed with the team. So it's hard to tell, is he just exhausted? What's going on? He looks awesome, but you can't really rely on sliding Milton Williams out there unless you want to run 3 or 4 defensive tackles on the field at the same time. So Howie has gone through, and we can talk about the pickups if you want. I don't imagine, that they're going to make a bunch of splash plays, but this is a team that had 3 healthy edge rushers on the roster once Brandon Graham goes out for the year. And that's a tough place to be when you want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it is. And, you're relying on Bryce Huff to come back and be effective. Jalix Hunt, a rookie that everybody was kind of like, who the hell is this guy? To now all of a sudden step up. You need Nolan Smith to take the next step. Like you said, I think that's where it comes from. You kind of look at the market, players who are available. There's not really anybody that stands out. And of course, if they did, they wouldn't be on the open market. So that's kind of where we're at. You need the internal options to take the next step, to be the players they were drafted to be. Jalix Hunt, third, fourth rounder, then Nolan Smith, the late first rounder. So that's what you need. That's what the Eagles will be looking for. So let's talk about this defense overall, though. As we kind of move out of this Rams game, that's the biggest thing. Can they continue to get pass rush and pressure? And you just highlighted extremely well with Brandon Graham on the field off run defense wise. Where do you see this team moving forward, right? Because, Fangio's cooking right now. This defense has looked the best it's been in a long time. The secondary looks legit. I think that's the strength. But are we going to see a little bit more Nakobe Dean coming off the edge rusher? You floated Zach Bond a little bit. Like, what do you envision?
Well, I can see Bond sliding into kind of like not exactly the same thing, but like rookie year Micah Parsons, before it was full-time hand in the dirt, and it was like, hey, you're just going to go get the quarterback. We don't really care how you do it. Now Bond's going to do that 5% of the snaps maybe, but when you take his snaps at middle linebacker and you give them to Jeremiah Charter Jr., that kind of limits what this defense is able to do, because Bond is so instinctual and athletic, and that's going to be tested again on Sunday. I could see some more bear fronts. Like I could really see Vic just saying, you know what, we got a bunch of 300-pound, what did he call them, war daddies, something like that. We got guys that we want to go get in fist fights with. So that's something I can see. But this is a Eagles defense that's the best in my estimation since like 2008, probably somewhere around there when we were, young bucks. But and it's been a lot to do with the secondary. Jalen Carter's still going to eat doubles. So if these other guys can win one-on-ones up front, then it shouldn't be that noticeable of a drop-off up front when you're not playing a team like the Baltimore Ravens or the Detroit Lions who can just run it at you over and over and over again. But when we're talking about how good the secondary's been, it goes in unison with how well that defensive line has been able to win those one-on-one matchups. Jalen Carter's winning the 2v1s, so that helps too. But Quinion Mitchell has been electric. Cooper DeJean has been awesome. All of these things. But now there might be 5 seconds to throw the football, and that's going to create a whole bunch of different options. The silver lining here, Brad, is that Vic Fangio is probably a top 3 defensive coordinator in the league at in-game adjustments. And so being able to play chess, in game versus the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, Jonathan Gannon style of like, this is what we do. We're going to do this for 60 minutes. And if you figure it out, good for you. That certainly gives some hope, but I'm stressing about this BG injury. I think it's a much bigger deal than kind of nationally reported.
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge deal, and it's one that's scary. And just the way he's effective, and honestly, I mean, the best edge rusher on the team. I mean, let's be honest. I know the age, and Josh Sweat had a good run, but Brandon Graham this season was the best edge rusher. And then you take him away, it's not just what he does in the passing game; it is the running game, which was getting brutalized earlier in the season. So for him to, it's going to take a shot. That's for sure. It's going to take a hit. I would be surprised, Tyson, if there's a little bit more disguised blitzes. This late in the season, I think everybody's a little bit more familiar with the Fangio stuff. Kind of know the verbiage too from the previous regime. So maybe some more disguise stuff we see to create like artificial pressure, or at least, get some of these athletes on the edge coming downhill. Maybe DeJean's used a little bit more on the inside slot, but that's also a scary thing, right? Because then you open up Slay to get cooked. Rodgers was getting cooked a little bit on the outside, and the secondary has been so good to see that take a regression, or to then even go back to the mean. That would be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, but as soon as Avonte Maddox came on the field, Cooper Kupp scored a touchdown. And I know that PFF didn't assign that one to Quinion Mitchell. My dumb brain on the TV copy kind of thought that, it was in between zones there. So nice to see that Quinion still doesn't have an official one on his record, but it's kind of like Lane with sacks, where it seems like he gets beat once a year and it just doesn't get recorded for him, which we'll take. We take those as wins. But it's certainly a different Eagles unit than in years past, where the strength has been, hey, we got these 10 edge guys that we can rotate in, and we have 2 whole starting defensive lines. This year, that's not the case, and it didn't, become an issue until week 12. which is a credit to the strength and conditioning staff and all of that. But we are going to find out how good Jalen Hunt is. Jalen Hunt is like 180 pounds. He looks like when he's out there. I am hoping that he can set the edge. As half as good as Brandon Graham would still be a win, I think, for this team, because it doesn't sink their ship as far as winning a Super Bowl, but there's a little hole now. We need some Flex Seal.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, let's look at the offense now. Let's transition into that side. Everybody's talking about the Saquon Barkley thing, and I think that is the identity moving forward, right? Like, we know they're going to try to run the football. They're going to be stubborn with it. They're going to continue to attack. They're probably going to gash, and they're probably going to be able to have success no matter what. Maybe it gets stopped for a little bit, but I think overall, he'll probably get his numbers unless they go all out blitz and Hurts isn't finding anybody on the outside. But I want to talk about the passing attack here with you. Now, I thought A.J. Brown, had a good game. It's still concerning to me that there's not like a true number 2, number 3 here. I mean, even like it's weird, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown goes out, Smitty looks like the number 1, A.J. Brown comes back in, all of a sudden, like, he's not a factor anymore. I do want to say, though, we only have a certain number of plays in NFL football games, right? Like, that's what we know. That's why, the gambling lines are the sharpest. That's why all these numbers, projections are like pretty accurate, is because there's only so many plays, there's only so many possessions. So when you're running the football, you're taking it out of Hurts' hands. He's only throwing it, 25, 28 times max now. Let's say 8 of those targets go to A.J. Brown, another 6, another 5 go to Smitty, and, a couple of checkdowns now. All right, so we got about 10 to 7 to play with. Goddard gets 5? I mean, really, that's what we're looking at. Dotson, right? I mean, he's only getting like 2 or 3 a game. That's kind of where we're at with this offense. Does that concern you? Do you wish like there was more involvement, or kind of how are you thinking about this?
I'm not concerned right now. One of the things that popped in my head during that Sunday night game was like, this is another week where they're able to play the kind of game that they want to play. If they end up behind to Baltimore on Sunday, for instance, a team with a bad pass defense, then maybe we see this passing offense come alive. But they've been able to dictate what it is that they want to do. And I think that 8 should be the absolute minimum for a guy like A.J. Brown as far as targets go. I'd actually like to see his target percentage go up. I know it feels like he's getting the ball every time they drop back. I want it more. This dude is a absolute stud. He is a beast. And with Devontae Smith, it's been strange. But again, like A.J. Brown misses a chunk of time at the beginning of the year, and then they're back together. Devontae gets crushed against the Rams and misses some time. Now Devontae's out with a hamstring. They still haven't necessarily gotten to get a ton of reps in together. And I know you can say, well, they've been playing with each other since 2022, but this is a new offensive coordinator. It's a new skill position group that you just drop a nuke into and say, hey, we have Saquon Barkley. We have a guy who I think is sitting 3rd right now in MVP odds for the entire NFL. So you don't want to take the ball out of his hands. I actually, Brad, I got to be honest, I think Jalen Hurts really likes Johnny Wilson.
I do too. If he seems like a likable guy in the locker room and on the sideline. I mean, Lane Johnson, the veteran, he's like hugging the rookie like he was like his younger brother. It was sweet. I agree, especially in the red zone. That's kind of why they target him. They talk about that size. Oh, tallest ever recorded at the combine. But I think he's becoming a weapon down there. The hands, that's Tyson. We watch a lot of football, a lot of college football, I should say. The Johnny Wilson hands are an issue. Like, he can get open. He's a big guy. But if you're going to be that tall, you have to be able to high point. You have to be able to catch the ball. I thought Jalen at the end kind of showed a little frustration. It's the Rams like, dude, I put that there. That's got to be something you at least come down with, or at least, make it a little bit more contested than that. But I agree. I think he's going to be a weapon down there. I just don't know if Dotson's ever going to kind of emerge this year, maybe going forward as he gets a little bit more reps with the offense. But Tyson, this is like, since Jalen Hurts has been here, the 3rd wide receiver is just not a target. It's Goddard, it's Smitty, it's A.J. Brown.
And it's only Goddard sometimes.
Right. So I think we're kind of, we're like, well, Dotson's just kind of running cardio out there. It's like, well, anybody who's in that position kind of is. And unless that changes, which, this is the offense. I don't really see that happening. Not that I have anything wrong with it, man. This offense is operating with Saquon Barkley running it. Tyson, I'm with you. I think just be a little bit more efficient when they're throwing the football. Like, if Hurts has the right read, has the right protections, and is attacking the football or is attacking down the field, that's damn hard to stop.
Yeah, and last thing on the offense for me, I guess it's two things. But one, I feel like they're closing games better in a 4-minute drill, 4-minute situation than they had in 2023, certainly. And I think even better than 2022. Now it's like you have to come get this thing from us versus they might have to punt it away here. It feels like they're in control at all times. And then the second thing, there has not been a lot of Jalen Hurts throwing the football in the red zone, at least not in a drop back setting. That throw to AJ Brown was crisp. It was perfect. It was awesome. AJ was open, and those are things that we're hoping to see more of because it just adds another element. When you're down there, and the field shrinks and the box is no longer really even existing because there's 5 yards between you and the goal line, the running lanes get smaller. And so I think that that's something that can certainly, be added onto. But it's another week where the Eagles win in convincing fashion, and we're sitting here going, "Oh, I just want a little bit more."
Well, that's the whole Negadelphian aspect of this, Tyson. We're gonna get more this weekend. It's a huge game. This is the final of this trio that everybody had circled, kind of after when the Eagles started going on the streak. Yeah, they've beaten the Browns. Yeah, they've beaten Daniel Jones and the Giants. But what are they going to look like against real teams? Well, after a sluggish start against Commanders, they bodied them at the end, destroyed the Rams. It's, the best passing attack they're going to face. But this is truly the test. I think everybody circled this Ravens game. Let's go through it. We'll give our predictions. We kind of highlighted the injuries. Where are you at with this game?
Well, this is where the Brandon Graham thing is going to hurt the most. You're running up against the only other rushing attack in the NFL that rivals yours, really, in the Baltimore Ravens here. Derrick Henry he's having almost as good of a season as Saquon Barkley right now, which is it's crazy. These two guys are doing that, and Lamar Jackson is the premier running threat at the quarterback position. That's not new news, but I think this is a spot where the Eagles defense can once again rise to the occasion. I'm interested to see how Baltimore plays this. To me, it feels like the Eagles have the opportunity here to run a lot of man-to-man stuff and say, hey, I don't think that Zay Flowers is going to beat Quinyon Mitchell, more than 50% of the time, 40% of the time, whatever it is. Rashad Bateman and Darius Slay or Cooper DeJean and whoever else, and then Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean matching up with Likely and Andrews. Those are tough matchups, but that's what you have to do against the Baltimore Ravens because you need to make sure that you can turn Lamar Jackson into a passer because if you start sitting back there in zone and the spy is 6 or 7 yards away from the line of scrimmage, it's game time. It's over with. And Zach Bond is a freak athlete for a linebacker. If they are even at the line of scrimmage, Lamar Jackson is gone. There's nothing you can do there. So I'm curious to see how they kind of want to hem Lamar into the pocket, if that's even doable. This is another situation where we're going to hear the stat. Lamar Jackson only has one loss in his career against NFC teams. Well, the Eagles play against Jalen Hurts every day in practice, so it's the same. No, it's not the same thing. They move different. They run different. They play different. They have not seen this guy before. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into it if this Eagles defense gets shredded up by Lamar running the football. But I think that if Derrick Henry comes out and has 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, that might have to be something we think about with this team when we look ahead to the Josh Jacobs of the world, to the Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomerys of the world as you kind of turn your eyes towards the playoff.
Yeah, I think the Henry thing for sure, because Lamar does stuff that you're not really going to be able to prepare for. But
nobody else does it.
I think even if Henry has a good game on the ground, and it's not just like line up and power run. If it's like more of that spread look, I can forgive that a little bit as we look ahead. Because Jordan loves. The Eagles already played him, and this was when he was healthy. He hurt his knee at the end, but they don't do that spread look. They want to get under center, and they don't present that same kind of mesh type of read. And really, anybody else, Tyson, the only one I can think of who kind of does that is Josh Allen, that the Eagles may face. At that level. I mean, they just played the Commanders.
So.
Right. That's looking too far ahead. I got to knock on wood. What am I talking about? But I mean, the Lions, right? Like they're not presenting that. Like they present a great run offense, but they want to get downhill. Like they want to come at you. They want to use their offensive line. So maybe that is like if they line up the Ravens and they dominate that way instead of the spread look. I think that could be something that kind of you pointed out too. I'm nervous about this one. I think the Eagles go out west. They come back. Everybody's telling them how great they are. The Ravens come off a good win. Now they were out west too. So it's like you kind of cancel those things out. But I think they could do some different things the Eagles haven't seen this year. Tyson, do you want me to give my prediction? Are we ready for that?
I think go for it. I also think that as a environmentalist, they should have just shared a plane back to Maryland.
um, the Ravens are going to beat the Eagles this Sunday. This is the first time we've gone away from the Eagles winning. This is when the Eagles' winning streak ends. This will be a great learning experience for the Eagles. They face one of the top teams. Hopefully, I mean, the national media then, right, gets off their back, like, oh, how good they are. They start throwing shots at Sirianni. They start using that as a rallying cry, and then it just propels them through the rest. But I think the Ravens win this game.
Yeah, I am struggling to find a different way than that to put it. This was a schedule loss to me when the thing came out. I didn't think the Eagles are going to be sitting here at 9-2 going into this game either. So they have been impressive. Devontae Smith doesn't practice again today. That's huge. If he plays or if he was 100%, I might have a different feeling on this game. I also think Baltimore is probably going to get the Birds this weekend, and it's not going to change the way I feel about the Philadelphia Eagles, because I was laying in my bed on Sunday night after the game. I got visions of Saquon running for 255 yards in my head, and then the thought creeped into my noggin. They got to lose one. Like before the playoffs start, I almost want them to lose one, because
right.
You don't want to be the team going into the playoffs on a 10 or 11 game win streak, because then the pressure is just it's a lot. And I think Detroit might end up in a similar situation. This is the farthest west the Eagles have to go, like for the rest of the year. They're in Maryland or Pennsylvania for the rest of the season. So I think that Baltimore is going to get them. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think there will be more points maybe than people are expecting right now. The Eagles have been excellent at limiting explosive plays, but don't the Ravens just kind of piss everybody in the NFL off because they find the one to Rashad Bateman for 40 yards, or Zay Flowers finds the one throughout the game. Nelson Aguilar finds the one. But Brad, this is another podcast that we do. You know where I'm going with this. I'm going with my bold prediction now. I think Isaiah likely finds the end zone against the Philadelphia Eagles. How's that?
Okay. I'll one-up you then. I think Jahan Dotson scores a touchdown.
Whoa!
Doesn't it just feel that like it's one of those? It's going to be one of these weird games, and like Charlie Kohler is going to score. You get Likely, and then the Eagles like counter with like a random Dotson bomb or like a little slant or some weird.
Ben Sumerman takes an 85-yard fullback sneak.
Exactly, like a push that he like picks up or something.
No, this is going to be really fun. One of the things to watch, I think, is maybe another level for the Eagles play action pass game. The Ravens they have a big physical front. They're a good run defense, but they are towards the bottom of the league in pass defense, and they're even closer to the bottom of the league when defending those play action runs. So if you can get Marlon Humphrey and the boys to take just one step forward, it could be good. But as we talked about at the beginning, those balls are probably going to 11, and I think AJ is going to see a lot of doubles this weekend.
Yeah, I think so too. That's Jahan Dotson time, Dallas Goedert time. Watch that. Roquan Smith was banged up against the Chargers. You kind of lose him. It could be a Goddard game. So I'm going to take the bold prediction, though, because that's too easy. We'll go with Dotson.
That's good. Well, we haven't hit one yet, so we should have just picked every Raven to score, probably.
We really should have. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here at Eagles Uncovered, presented by the Undroppables. This is coming out Thanksgiving, I assume, Tyson. Hope everybody who's watching and listening, whether you haven't eaten yet, whether you're still watching football, whether you're just getting fired up, we hope you have a great Thanksgiving with family and friends. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the Eagles on Sunday. It could be a little frustrating, but hey, listen, guys, the Eagles have put some in the bank, right? Like they're sitting pretty right now. Let's just use this, and maybe they do win it. Maybe they don't. We don't think they will, but who knows? Maybe they do. Let's get out of here. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there. We'll talk to you guys next week.